What's up, everyone? The Panda Photographer here, and I want to talk to you Sony fanboys that gave me so much criticism about my video about why I want to switch to Fuji. Now, keep in mind that I am not a Sony fanboy. I only purchased Sony gear because I wanted something different from using my Nikon back in 2014. Keep this with a grain of salt. I used the gear that works for me at the time. Now, it's always in the best interest of any photographer to look for the next best thing to practice photography. Not to state that one brand is better than another. No. Fuji just released the X-H1 and it is a very promising camera that have everything what I was looking for back in 2014 in a camera. Even though I purchased the Sony A77 and the A77 Mark II, the A77 Mark II was groundbreaking for me because it had the EVF. It showed me in real time what I can do with my portraits and what my landscapes and my time lapse. It showed me what I can do as a street photographer. It showed me what the capabilities were, and at the time it was a very good crop sensor, and to this day it's still a good crop sensor if you are still looking for a mount. Now, I did use C mounts, don't get me wrong. I used the A7R, A7R2. I loved it, but the problem with that was that overheating, problems with the color science, always had to correct it. Then I had to figure things out in the camera and the auto white balance. And the auto white balance was basically very simple to fine tune the colors in the Sony, which you can do with any Sony camera. Now, I'm not bashing Sony. I'm not trying to say Sony is a terrible camera manufacturer that makes terrible gear. No. Absolutely no. They make some great sensors. They make some great cameras. But A6300 doesn't do it for me. A65 doesn't do it for me either. I have used it. And to tell you the truth, they're great cameras, great crop sensors, by the way. But it doesn't do the job what I want it to do. It doesn't have some of the video features that the Fuji X-H1 is actually providing for $1,900. Now, keep in mind that the A6500 was about what, $1,900 or $1,800, and it was still missing some things for video makers out there. Now, if you're not familiar with the X-H1, now it comes with DCI, which you can make cinema, movies, and a camera that, how many cameras that you know right now, crop sensor from Sony, Nikon, and Canon that has DCI'd in 24 frames and 4K to make cinema movies? Zero. You find that feature in pro gear cinematographer cameras. You can find that in the Epic Red. You can find that in the FS5 and the FS7. You can find that in top tier $10,000 cameras and more. This crop sensor is probably the one camera that you can probably see that feature being utilized without any anti-flickering. Now, keep in mind, when I used the A6500 and A6300, I had flickering issues. Even with my time lapse, I had flickering issues. Fujifilm is providing a solution to all the problems that some of these photographers are actually requesting, and Fuji listened to its photographer base, its consumers, and it said, yes, put DCI in, yes, put anti-flicker in, yes, put slow-mo into this camera. Now, recently I posted a video about the new A7 III that's coming out, right? And I think that from what the speculations are about that camera is basically, yes, it's going to come with a 24 megapixel sensor, full frame, by the way, but let's hope Sony listens to you guys. Now, keep in mind that I want to talk to the Sony fanboys that gave me criticism about my video, and the reason why I didn't publish those comments, because some of them were just trolling really hard. The one person kept trolling, saying you abandoned A mount. I'm not abandoning A mount. It's that Sony has officially, I'm going to say this, Sony just hasn't said this officially, but it looks like Sony officially gave up on the A mount after the A99 Mark II. They're not probably going to focus on A mount anymore. A mount was a stepping stone for them to order to make E mount, which E mount is actually the NEX mount. But I digress. But when I was using 6500, doing time lapse and making videos, it was always the flickering. The flickering was the problem, and most of my cases, yes, Sony improved the flickering, anti-flickering problems over time and firmware updates, but you can still see flickering. I'm telling you now, you can still see flickering. That's why you gotta post you gotta edit your videos in post every single time. But with the Fuji, it looks like a professional camera meant for the professional in mind. It has that GFX look to it. It has that medium format look. If you've never seen that camera, it's a medium format camera, and that looks just like it. Yes, the exposure dials are not on the camera, but I'm looking for a camera like that. I like that vintage, old school, but modern look to a camera. I'm looking for something that's going to make me feel great about what I'm doing, how I feel about what I'm doing as a photographer, amateur videographer, YouTuber, and a creator. It helps me to improve by upgrading my gear. And I never was attached to Sony. I always praised Sony for what they did. I always said Sony was doing great things. But Sony is not the only damn manufacturer that's making mirrorless cameras. And people keep forgetting that. Then why Fuji doesn't make full frame cameras? Because they know that market is saturated already. They know that market is full of everyone making full frames. And that's what the main goal is. Most of the full frames that you see right now, you get all the features in it. Sony just started releasing with the A63, the A6500, all those nice features. But how many crop sensor cameras that you can see out there that can give you DRC capabilities to shoot cinema movies, 120 frames per second, 4K features? There's only a few, and this crop sensor is one of a kind. I'm not trying to get a free camera from Fuji. No. I would love to test it. I would love to borrow one to test it, and I'd love to give my thoughts on the camera. But the one thing I really want from a camera is what Fuji actually has offered. And they have a camera that I've been talking about for years. Been talking about it for a long time. A camera that I can use for video, YouTube content, photos, weddings, portraits, and yes, Godox makes flash systems for it now, so I'm not worried about it. But what I am worried about is, why is Sony fanboys giving me criticism when they should be saying, okay, you're not really attached to the Sony line, you only use the gear because it was the gear that was recommended at the time for me to try. Yes, someone else told me, try the A77 Mark II again, Mark II this time, Keiki. Give it another go. I gave it another go, and I liked it, and I kept it. But keep in mind that, like, Sony doesn't really, it came down also to the batteries. Now, a lot of people are going to criticize about the batteries on the Fuji. They said, like, well, Fuji has problems with their batteries. Not as bad as Sony did. No. I can testify to that. Not as bad as Sony did. Now, yes, Z batteries just came out, but there's only 3 cameras that are going to utilize Z batteries. Well, 2 cameras that actually currently are going to utilize those Z batteries. But the A7 III is claiming to have the Z batteries. But we have to see, because Sony said it's a mid-range camera. And I feel like Sony should address the battery issues for all the cameras. Make a grip for all your full frames that can utilize the Z batteries. Redesign the grips, even for the A7R II. Utilize this chance to give the Sony users what they want. But as I said, I'm here to actually talk to those Sony fanboys that gave me the bullshit comments that I still have in my YouTube box that are telling me that I'm a sellout, or what was that? I'm a sellout. You're a black monkey. You're a black monkey. Don't know where you want to stand as a photographer. Let me tell you, I know what I want to stand as a photographer. I traveled a lot with my gear all the time. Last night I went out to choose some night photos to make a video about night photography, but I'm going to blend it into a blog. But I always say in my videos when I do like a tutorial, it's like, use the gear that is right for you, use the gear that fits best for you. You don't have to go out and spend fucking $2,000 on some fucking glass. No. That's just fucking showboat photographers that's telling you like this glass is good. Yeah, the glass is good, but can you afford the glass? That's the point. Can you actually afford? How many people excuse me, how many people and photographers out there can afford $2,000, $3,000 glass? Not a lot of people, because it's a struggle as a photographer to actually save up that money to order to get that piece of glass. It's a struggle to actually save up that money to order to get that camera that you desire, that you want. But don't take it from me. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? I'm just a fucking ordinary photographer that doesn't know shit about camera gears, but I've been shooting off and on since I was 12. But I give you this. For your Sony fanboys out there that are kissing Sonys and hanging on Sony's ball sacks, listen, you can do that, but don't criticize me for what I'm doing for my photography. Don't do that kind of shit to another photographer. That's what brings this community down. That's why we don't have no love for each other. That's why we don't have any commitment to each other to help each other out. It's always one against another. You should be happy that I'm looking for something that's going to suit my workflow, to my aggressive hobby list as a photographer. You cannot assume that I'm selling out. What I'm selling out? I wasn't an artisan. I'm not a collective. Never wanted to be. Why am I selling out? How am I selling out? Sony's never gave me a single dime, a single item for free. How am I selling out? Sony's never presented any of my content. Sony's never come to me and say, hey, come to my event. No. Sony's never paid me or asked me to come to an event. So how am I selling out? I'm not kissing no one's ass. The only ass I want to kiss is my own. So with that said, as a photographer, everyone, you do not have to buy the expensive gear. People still shooting with kit lenses that, would you shot that with? I shot that with a kit lens. No way. You'd be surprised how many photographers out there can do with just a little amount of gear and be good at it. That's because they practice all the time, every single day. They read, they touch up, they practice on the computer when they come down to touch up. They try to learn software when touching up. They try to learn brush methods. Sony doesn't make anything easier. It makes it much easier when you go out and shoot, but you still have to learn how to touch up. You got to learn how to edit. You got to learn how to process. Cameras are just tools. The real tool is yourself. Your motivation to be a photographer because you love to be a photographer, not because you want to show off and be this hot top-notch photographer and be a dickhead to the people. And I know a few photographers that are really dickheads to the people, acting like they know a bit or two, but not everyone is perfect. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. And as a photographer, that's the way that life is. We're only human. We do what we can. We do what is necessary to survive and to bring our art to the community and to the people. Show the people what you do on a daily basis other than your normal day jobs. Most of you have day jobs. Some of you are struggling to get a day job. Some of you are struggling day by day just to buy a camera. Those are the real photographers that are trying to do the best, and they love it because it makes them happy. With that said, I'm the Panda Photographer. If you want to support this channel, there's a PayPal link down in the description below. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Mixi, Lavend, WikiLeaks, anywhere. All the links are down below. With that said, be true to yourself. Don't have to be a fanboy. And eat, sleep, photography, repeat. I'll see you guys in the next one.